Hey, everybody.
Maybe. There we
We're,
are.
we're back
Hi,
on Fifth.
guys.
I'm back
He's back.
and as beautiful as ever. Bald is beautiful, baby. The more hair you lose, the more head you get. All right. What? Did I say something wrong?
No.
How are you, Lindsay?
I have had an absolutely horrible weekend.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Everybody in my house, except me, was violently ill.
Oh, really?
Top and bottom. I was cleaning up messes like no one would believe.
That is no.
Even the dog threw up.
Oh, yeah. What I would call that a pretty tough weekend, then, right?
Yeah, so happy Mother's Day to me. I got to take care of everybody.
I was gonna say that was your Mother's Day, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. But yeah, that was my weekend. And my eldest is home again today from school, so he's upstairs. And yeah, that's my I'm happy to be here. But
Oh,
not
I'm happy to be back with you. I heard you had a great show last week.
I thought it went really well.
Why would it?
It was me and Curtis. Of course it went well.
Of course it was. I was gonna
Of course
say.
it went well.
Well, I have to tell you, I didn't even think about you. I'm not going to lie.
And that's okay.
While you were doing the show, I was on Bourbon Street, which was quite the experience, I have to tell you. It was both what I expected and not what I expected. And let me preface this by saying I loved NOLA. New Orleans is where I was. For those overseas, that's New Orleans, Louisiana, hence NOLA. Loved it there. Wouldn't want to live there, but loved it. But I knew Bourbon Street was party area. We got there about 3:30, and the drunks. By the way, it had just finished a pouring rainstorm. The drunks were everywhere, and about every 5 feet there is an adult club when you first go down. Like the first thing we saw was, I think it was the Hustler one. I'm like, what? I've never seen that on TV or anything, right? All I could think of was I was like on the Vegas Strip again. There's a club and they're trying to get you to go in and they're handing you things and all that stuff. But never went back to Bourbon Street after that. Visited the whole area. Loved it. Great town, great people, great food. I eat like a pig. Beignets, baby, every day for breakfast.
Oh, we drove through New Orleans.
Nolans. Like I said, Nolans.
It's Nolans.
Nolans.
We drove through many years ago when my mom was still alive. We drove to Universal because we couldn't afford to fly, and we stopped in. We timed our visit so that we would arrive in time for breakfast, and we went to Cafe Du Mont and had
loved
brand new fresh beignets. My eldest son was like 3 at the time. He got powdered sugar all over him, and a very nice gentleman was walking his German Shepherd and managed to lick all of the powdered sugar off before we got into the car.
Yeah, we went to the World War II Museum Friday, but we stopped at Cafe Du Mont first, and I was wearing a black shirt originally. Had to go change to a gray one because by the time I got done with my beignets, the black shirt was mostly white. So not that the hotel is far from the museum, but we ran back to the hotel and changed. And that was an awesome experience too. No, they're not paying me to say this, but we spent the entire day there Friday and still didn't get to see everything. Very moving, a lot of good stuff to see. Your husband would love it, Lindsay. Trust me, he would geek out there. But yeah, really good time, but I'm glad to be back. No, Steve, I did not go to World Coffee on the boardwalk. I did Cafe Beignet, Cafe Du Mont, Cafe something or else. There's a lot of cafes there. But yeah. Anyway, so no, Steve, I had never been to Bourbon Street till last Wednesday at Showtime, by the way, because I was gonna jump in, and say hi. But I figured with the Playboy and Penthouse things behind me, it probably wouldn't have been a good idea. So
Probably not. Although we weren't on TikTok, so I got to use bad words.
oh yeah. So yeah. All right. So what's the topic for today?
A general kind of PSA for things that you want to think about if you think you want to get married. Well, these are the things you need to think about first.
Sorry.
Curtis said something about prenups, which we've covered before, but
it's always good to cover them again.
It's always good to cover it again. But I also kind of wanted to talk about some of the things that I think don't get talked about enough when you're planning to get married. Mostly she convinces you we don't need to talk about it, and then they all become problems later.
Do tell. I can't wait to hear this myself now.
First of all, love is not all you need. You actually have to sit down and talk about what the reality of what your marriage is going to look like when you get married.
Hell on earth. Oh, sorry. Did I say that?
I mean, Mr. Squirrel and I were stupid, dumb teenagers. We're talking, I was 16 and he was 19 the first time we ever talked about this stuff of what we were going to.
You know what I was doing? Never mind.
I know what you were doing.
Yeah, I was.
But even at that young age, we still talked about, well, what are your expectations? Do you want me to stay at home? Do you expect me to have a job? Do you expect to pay half and half? The answer is, until we had children, I was very upfront about him. I said, I would like to be a traditional homemaker after we have children, not before we have children. So I worked full time all the way up until I got pregnant and then couldn't work anymore. I swelled up like a whale. I did.
Not touching it. I'm not touching it.
I had preeclampsia. The doctors were worried that I was gaining so much water weight that my skin was going to rip.
Yeah, my first wife had that with her fourth pregnancy. Not fun. Not fun.
No, not fun. But
actually very dangerous too.
But I saw the children that I went to school with, who their parents both worked full time, and they never saw them. They only saw them in the afternoon, in the evening, and they were all little hellions. No common. They were all the people that bullied me, that didn't care about anything else, didn't have empathy, because they were not raised. They were sat in front of a screen or a babysitter who couldn't care less, and I told myself that I wasn't going to let. If we were going to have children, I was going to raise them, not have someone else raise my children. Mm-hmm. So when we started dating, I said, this is what my plan is. And if we can't encompass that, then we're not compatible, but we agreed. And we also talked about division of, what does a traditional marriage look like in today's society? And we talked about how I will do 99.9% of all the housework. I only require help with the things that I physically can't do. Mm-hmm. And anything that you want to help with. But if I'm not working, I'm doing 99.9% of the housework. My only stipulation with that is don't treat me like a maid. Don't expect me to.
That's fair. There's nothing wrong with that.
But we talked about
anyway.
We talked about all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I talked to other people, I realized we were one of the only people our age that talked about this. Mm-hmm. And nowadays it's almost unheard of. It's like, oh, we're getting married. But no one thinks about what the marriage is going to look like. They think that the wedding is the finish line, and it's not.
Not even close.
And then now I have seen the opposite. I have seen men will often ask, okay, well, what does that look like? And the wife will say, oh, or the girlfriend at the time will say, oh, well, we'll just make it up as we go along. And the men go in thinking one thing, the women go in thinking another, and usually he's completely blindsided later when she either changes her mind Or she's like, well, I didn't think it was going to be this way. And I was like, well, what did you think it was going to be like, Susan?
Well, you do all change once you get that piece of paper. I'm sorry, but you do.
And I was also always taught that, because you see a lot about the what is it, the women that are on all the social media channels saying like, well, if he's not going to put on a ring on it, well, then I'm not going to give him wife behavior without wife benefits. And I was like,
what
you
benefits?
know,
that is my response. Oh, okay. So you're not going to deny him a little something, something. You're not going to bitch and moan at him 24/7. You're not, that is not the flex they think it is. It's actually the exact opposite.
Well, I was taught by my father to interview for the job you want, not the job you have. So I started performing wife duties before I got the ring, to the best of my ability at the time. Like, there was only so much I could do when I was still in high school.
She means the dishes, by the way.
Yes, I do mean the dishes.
Just to clarify.
But these things aren't talked about anymore when you're going into a marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And guys get blindsided by it more often than not. Or the image that the woman has is in her head and she never bothers to share it with him.
Well, I mean, I agree with you completely. And I think I put a lot of blame on the guys, by the way, because we put and I'm guilty of it. All right. First marriage, we put our blinders on. We get into that. We'll deal with it when it comes mindset, which you mentioned earlier. And we have our expectations. And, the old saying is men marry hoping she won't change. Women marry hoping he will change. Right. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. And the reality for men is everyone changes. It's inevitable, especially if you're early 20s, like most marriages were back in my day. Now it's more, I think I saw somewhere it's early 30s is now the average first marriage. People are going to change. Who I am now at almost 62 is not who I was at 42 or 22. So having that mindset that we'll deal with it and all that, it doesn't work. You've got to have some ground rules, for lack of a better term, and be together on it. Things like some of the things that I never thought about, and it really wasn't an issue for me, but it could be, was, are you going to raise the children religious or not? Or if so, what if you're not the same religion? Which one are you going to go? That was never an issue for me, but it did become an issue when it came to baptisms. And my ex-mother-in-law wanted the kids baptized like this. And she wasn't hyper religious by anything. And it's not that I was opposed to it, but I'm like, well, can we at least, right? So things like that, you want to have that discussion honestly before you get engaged. Because I think you should have that discussion in the first, somewhere between dates 5 and 15.
Mm-hmm.
Why waste your time, right? You're going to talk about things. Are you going to work? Or do you think you should be at home, or I should be at home? Because guys can stay home too, right? What about religion? There's a whole host of things. Why would you wait until you're engaged to have that conversation? Because I don't know what it is now, but in my day, because I'm old, you basically dated for about 2 years, year to 2 years, then got engaged, then got married. Well, why would you waste 2 years of your life and find out someone, because you never had the conversation, find out someone is not compatible with you? What a waste of time. Find out early, not date one though.
Well, I think
that's a little crazy.
I think that's the difference between I've said it before, dating and courting. Dating is more casual. Courting is you are courting with the intent of getting married. So we, like Mr. Squirrel and I talked about all sorts of things, like even to how are we going to handle disciplining our kids? Like
there's another good one. Great one.
There was one where I was being bullied by someone, and it got me curious to think that, well, if this were my child, this is what I would want to do. How would you handle it? It was fortunate that we both had the same.
But that's an interesting point, Lindsay. So I'll use myself again as an example. My current wife and I, great marriage now. There's no way I would have married her 40 years ago because we have very different perspectives on how to raise children. Right? I believe they need discipline, they need control, they need leadership. She is very laissez-faire. We would have killed each other. We do it with the dogs sometimes, right? Because she'll let the dogs do anything they want, whereas I'm like, no, okay. We would never have survived as a husband and wife 40 years ago when we were young if we had kids together. Just wouldn't happen. I would never have married her then. But again, it speaks to change, right? Well, we first met when I was 47. So it's 15 years now. It's different now. We have no children. But she thinks I'm crazy for the way I still am with my kids. And I think she's bonkers the way she treats her daughters. Right? Because she doesn't hold them accountable for anything. Whereas I'm, as I talk about my oldest daughter the most because I'm probably the closest with her right now. But I still hold her accountable. She's 36 years old. So
I still get all kind of upset with my dad when my dad makes the "I'm disappointed in you" noise. He doesn't say the words. He has a look on his face and he makes a noise, and I'm like,
all it takes.
Oh.
I can make my daughter Amanda, 36 years old, cry just by looking at her. That's all it takes. But again, what worked for us is I knew this going into marrying her, right? But at that point, we were both in our late 40s. Children was not going to happen, right? So it was a non-issue for us. But if we were 27 instead of 47, had we not had a conversation or did not know, it would have been a disaster. And that's why it's so important to communicate. And guys, in some ways, I think are more guilty than the ladies are. Because we go in like this and this.
Well, ladies usually have an idea of what it looks like. They have a expectation.
They have a fantasy.
A
Disney fantasy.
In many cases, it is on the man to sit her down and go, tell me your thoughts. Because otherwise, she'll think, well, I had this isn't what I expected. But you never told him what you expected. It was all up here. Well, he never asked. And that means you could never tell him?
Yeah, it's both are responsible. But in that case, I would say, because the women will think, well, he should just know. That's the other one you'll hear. Well, he should know what I want.
If you don't know, I'm not going to tell you.
Yeah.
My mother used to do
I
that
actually
to me
got a video I
time.
did on that. I'm mad at you, but I'm not going to tell you why. And then, get mad at him for not being able to read your mind. But anyway, that's why I say to guys, you need to have these conversations. And again, early on, dates 5 to 15. What are your thoughts on kids even? Do you want to have kids? Because a lot of women don't these days. And that's fine if they don't. But if you want kids, why would you marry or why would you continue dating someone that doesn't want kids? Yeah, they could change their mind down the road. Clock starts ticking about mid-30s and they go, oh, wait a minute, I do want a kid, right? But you can't count on that. And it's not your place to force them to have a kid, by the way. So I say to guys, you need to be the proactive one because you're the one that's going to pay, not her. So you end up in family court or divorce court, you're the one that's going to lose. And that's why I'm so adamant about it. It's on the guys. Take care of your own. And I would say the same thing, by the way. If I was talking with a bunch of women, I would say you're responsible for your side.
So the thing that I used I was having this conversation with someone on one of the motherhood pages as I was waiting for whomever was in the bathroom to be done so I could clean it on Mother's Day. I was scrolling through all of the mother stuff that was on my Facebook page. And it came up this, well, this isn't what I wanted. And I was like, well, did you ever share your expectations? Well, he never asked. I was like, there's this thing called informed consent. And you not sharing your expectations and then expecting him to consent without first disclosing everything That's on you. And she goes, oh. Because they
Common
were
sense.
they were jumping over themselves trying to explain why he has to ask. And I was like, he should ask, yes. But it's on you to also explain yourself. Otherwise, you're lying by omission.
Yes, very much so, right? And that's what we're talking about is communication, right? And the other thing I've had both men and women say is, well, I don't want to have that conversation because they're afraid of it, right? They've invested 2 years of their life with this person. They're all right. Now it's time to get married. We're not going to talk about this. I don't want to know because it might not be what I want to hear. What do you think is going to happen long term? Do you think you're going to have a happy marriage? I got news for you. That's a guarantee you're going to end up divorced, in my opinion, and you've got to communicate. And I do that with my wife. Sometimes we don't agree on things. Like I said, if we ever had children together, it would have been a disaster.
Well, I don't want to have that conversation now because, well, what if that's not what he wants? I'm going to lose him. I'm like, okay, well, which one's going to hurt more? Are you losing him now or are you losing him later?
Yeah, for him, it's a disaster too, right? Because he's going to lose the house, the car, and everything else.
You can part ways as friends now with a little bit of hurt, or you can grow to resent and hate him in 15 years and then be such a vindictive shrew that you take his kids, his houses, and his car, and maybe the dog. Like, pick your battle. And inevitably they're like, well, in the movies, I'm like, life isn't the movies.
Not the movies, yeah.
Well, you actually have to communicate with your spouse. Or you're supposed to.
You should know the other side of it, though, Linz, that I would say is you need to know what you want. A lot of guys don't. I'll just deal with it. Now, again, I'll use myself. When I was between marriage 2 and 3, I was having a lot of fun. But I had very strict rules that I was following. I was willing to date a single mother, but only if the kids were at least 15. No kids younger than 15. Absolutely. Because I figured at that point, we're going to date for a few years. By the time we actually thought, if it ever got to marriage, the kid would be out the door, right? So that was a hard and fast rule. Not wanting any more kids. Very hard and fast rule. Because there were, I was mid 40s at the time, and there were a lot of women in their 20s and 30s that wanted to date me. And I ain't no Brad Pitt, by the way. All right. There's no way in hell I had 5 biological kids and a stepson at that point that I consider my own. So that was 6 kids. I didn't want another one. I didn't want to raise anybody else's younger kid. I met a couple of women. One of them had an 8-year-old. She was an awesome woman. We probably were very compatible in every way, except for the fact she had an 8-year-old son. I wanted nothing to do with it. I had already done my time with that.
I think that's also one of the things that bugs me the most about the women is in marriages today. They get married without knowing what they want in life.
Yes.
And then when they figure it out, it doesn't come with the husband and the house and the kids. And then they break their marriage because, well, it's not what I wanted to be anymore. This is what I want to do with my life. So, okay. So you're going to break up your marriage, which is supposed to be a commitment, because you got married without having any direction. And now your direction that you chose is outside of the bonds of your marriage. So you have to cut the weight loose. You're a horrible person. Well, it's what I want. I was like, well, yes, I had dreams too about what I wanted, but I always understood that those dreams come second to the sanctity of my marriage. And if I can't make those dreams happen within the lane of I'm married, guess what? I don't do it because the marriage was more important. My husband is more important to me than any career path I could have chosen. My kids are more important to me than any career path that I could have chosen. And I didn't want to have a career when my children were young. Now with what, the activism that I'm doing, but they're older now. And I'm still not as active as I would like to be because they still need their mother. I still have to come.
mother them, right?
I
mean,
still have to mother them when they're a little bit older and they're, maybe my activism can kick up a notch, but I'm not going to punish the family that I committed to making, the vows that I took, for selfish reasons. And it is a selfish reason. The women will sit there and say, it's for my, I need it for me, because you're selfish.
oh, they'll destroy anyone's happiness they need to, including their own children's, that the ones they supposedly love, to make themselves happy, to fulfill their needs.
And then the husband, what if the husband had a dream that he wanted to do something? Okay,
that doesn't enter the equation in their minds.
Well, the number of times that there's a woman up the street from me that's divorcing her husband now because he was a dead-end job, not dead-end job, unhappy. He was like an accountant or PA or something, made excellent money, but it was not what he wanted to do. It's the job he got because they got pregnant when he was still in college and he needed something that could take care of a family.
He stepped up and took responsibility, in other words.
And he hates his job. He hated his job.
And that's a mistake guys make too. That's a whole other show.
But he did it for like 15 years. He did it. And then he's like, well, I want to go into real estate, but that means that you have to take time off of work. You have to go and you need to start out from the bottom. It's going to be a pay cut in the beginning. Mm-hmm. And she was unwilling to do it. She was unwilling to do it because it would decrease the lifestyle to which she had become accustomed. They are now divorced. Well, guess what? He did it anyway. He makes triple. He makes triple what he used to, and now she's like, "Come back." The same thing is true of my husband. He recently got a really good paying job that really improved our standard of living. But for the longest time, we were poorer than church mice.
And that's the way it usually is.
That is the way it usually is. So many people nowadays get married, and they're expecting their parents' standard of living.
That's why they hate the boomers so much.
Oh, don't get me started on them.
Being a boomer, I can say this. I literally laugh because I see it all the time, especially on Flakebook, right? There was a thing on our local, area thing, one of those pages, and they're just going off on boomers, how we have all the money and how they have it so hard because they have to work 50 hours a week. Oh. And I'm like, dude, you're about 25 years old looking at your picture. I was working 3 jobs at the time, raising 3 kids, and just killing myself.
I think my favorite is the one where this millennial or later millennial, because I'm an elder millennial, after 1990s kid is complaining about how, look at the tiny apartment I have, and and I'm like, you have more furniture in the house than my mother did. I remember pictures. I've seen pictures of my dad and my mom's first apartment. My dad specifically was 2x4 cinder block furniture, a cable spool as a coffee table that he'd whacked the bottom off.
Far from me, yep.
And a mattress in the corner.
Pretty much.
Yep. That was it. And he had that for 5 years before he got a real bed. And even when my parents got married, they had the cinder block entertainment center. The only reason they got a real one is because I started to crawl, and they were afraid that I would pull it off and try and pull myself up and hurt myself. So they actually went out and got an entertainment center, which, by the way, that thing has been rebuilt, reconfigured because it was real wood so many times. And now the only things that are left are the media towers that I call the twin towers, which are upstairs in my upstairs of my house now. So the piece of furniture that was bought when I was brought home from the hospital is now upstairs in my house because it's good. They don't make real wood furniture anymore. But they want the standard of living that they had when they were growing up, without realizing that when their parents started, they had nothing.
Right. Well, I mean, you're bringing back memories for me. The first time my first wife and we lived together for a few years before we got married. We had our beds we brought from our childhood, right? The single twin beds. We just pushed them together. We used those beds for like 3 years. right? The furniture we had was all secondhand, used stuff we had gotten from people. Our apartment was decent, but it was about 500 square feet, one bedroom. I mean, it wasn't horrible, but at the time, if I remember right, we were paying $325 a month for rent, which that's what pisses them off, right? Well, I have to pay $1,800 in rent. You only had to pay $325. I made $295 an hour. It's all relative, right? And
Well, the same thing with buying a house. They look at the ticket price of the house. They don't look at the interest rate you were paying on the loan to buy the house.
Tons of stuff, right? Now, where I was then and where I am now is night and day different. But the younger ones, and I'm going to say more of the women than the boys in their 20s, expect to walk into, 5-bedroom mansions with 6 bathrooms, drive a Beamer. He's got to be making his 6 figures to cover my lifestyle, and they don't want to grow. And again, that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, is you've got to have these conversations ahead of time. Because I will tell you right now, guys, if you are with a woman and she's got those kind of expectations, now you ain't seen nothing yet in 10 years. That 5-bedroom McMansion you have now will have to be a 10-bedroom one, because they want to compete with their friends, right? They have to outdo the Joneses, every single one of them. So they need to have the best car, the newest car, the best house, the newest house, the biggest house, all that stuff. And it just grows and grows. And if you don't determine that ahead of time, and that's why I laugh at these kids these days who get mad at us boomers. And I'm like, go ahead and get mad. You don't even do a fraction of what we did. We didn't have Xbox, whatever number it's on now. We had Pong, okay? And we were happy with it.
Atari.
Yeah, Atari at that time. You're right, 2600.
Or the old pinball machines.
Or Galaga, which I was really good at. But, this is what used to be, where you met someone, courted, as you said, decided to get married, and then you build. And yeah, the first 5 to 10 years, you went through it, I went through it, might be a little rough, right? It might not be what you want it to be. You get to your mid-30s, your mid-40s, things are getting better, 50s, and so on. It goes back. I'll really go old school. Back in the day, I love saying that, by the way, you bought a Chevy. Then you hoped to get to the next level up, which was, I think it was Oldsmobile was next, then Buick, then Cadillac, then Lincoln, and so on. You went up the ladder as you got older. That's why all the old people drove the Cadillacs and Lincolns, and everybody else was driving. I drove a freaking Pontiac T1000. It was a Chevy Chevette copy when I was 23 years old, because I had trashed my Nova by then. That I loved that car. Killed to have that car back. But that's what I could afford at the time. And I see kids now that are my age that I was then, 23, 24, and they're driving $80,000 trucks. And they're like, what the F do you need an $80,000 truck for? Or I'm in the Jeep capital of the world. They love buying their $80,000 Jeeps.
Now, see, I'm the daughter of a mechanic. I was told that if it gets you to point B, from point A to point B, and has air conditioning, but even that wasn't necessarily required.
A lot of cars didn't even have it back then.
But one of the conversations that I would love to see people bring back is talk about your expectations, but understand that when we say these are my expectations, the other person is not necessarily required to say, okay, I accept them. They're allowed to walk away.
Absolutely, they are. And better that they do than give in, because then neither party is going to be happy in the long run.
So we'll see, I was watching a video where a woman was saying, I told you to do this, or I told you this. And you said, okay. And I go, yes, he acknowledged that you told him, but he did not agree to do the thing that you asked. There's a difference. Acknowledgement and agreement are 2 different things. I see a lot of women talk at their husbands. They don't ask their husbands.
No, because they view them as their servant. I got a video coming at, so I went to town on it. Probably get me banned again, but yeah.
Although Mr. Squirrel and I recently had a bit of a tiff because I asked him I've told him this numerous times. If I am asking you to do something while I'm cleaning the house, I mean I'm asking you to do it expediently. Usually because
you better not watch my video. Oh boy, you'll stop speaking to me.
But I asked him, "Can you do this now?" And he said, yes. An hour later, it didn't get done. So I did it myself. I did it myself. And he said, I was going to do that. And I was like, when I asked you to do it, I've told you this. I have not lied to you. I have not subverted expectations. I have sat you down and told you numerous times that when I ask you to do something, especially if I'm cleaning, usually it's like if I'm getting ready to clean the light fixtures and I say, can you go get the ladder from the garage? It means I need the ladder now, or will soon need the ladder now. Go get the ladder from the garage.
I can't say anything because I'm going to get in trouble.
And then if he doesn't do it, I'll go get it myself. Here's the thing, though. I don't get mad.
You get even.
I don't get even either.
No, and I know you well enough to know you don't play that game.
I'll just go get it myself. And I've asked him before. I was like, look, if you don't want, because he's like, I said I was going to do it. I was like, you asked me if I needed any help. This is what gets me. He paused his video game and said, can I help you do anything? Because he feels bad when I'm cleaning around the house and he's playing video games. I said, can you go get the ladder for me? He didn't. So I went to go get the ladder. He goes, I was going to get it. I was like, okay. You asked me specifically. You stopped what you were doing, which I didn't ask you to do.
You realize I'm on his side. You know I got to defend him now, right?
But I wasn't mad at him. I just went to go get the ladder myself.
I'm having a really hard time staying quiet right now.
But I see a lot of women who would get mad.
Oh, yeah. Oh, he would pay dearly.
And a lot of the times I will even catch myself where I'll ask him to do something and I didn't say the words, I need you to do it now. I just said, do it with no open end, nothing. And it's like loading the taskbar. It's buffering. You add in a new task and it anyway.
It's buffering. It's just not a priority to him at that moment. Men and women have different priorities.
To be fair, though, I get stuck in the same thing. He got mad at me. He got mad at me the other day because I wouldn't pause Spyro to take out the trash.
I mean, it goes, yeah, exactly. That's the point, right? It goes both ways. Men and women have different priorities. Getting the ladder at that moment was not as important as what was he playing a video game or whatever. But he would have done it. Just you had your priority. You wanted to get whatever cleaned. But don't watch my video. Get mad at me. Because my video response would be, you want the damn ladder? Go get the goddamn ladder yourself.
I did go get the damn ladder myself.
And I'm not being mean to you. I'm just picking on you. But I mean, it's, again, these are conversations, though, that people need to have, and they don't. All right, before we go on, we're already 40 minutes in. This is flying by. So if you haven't already, give us a like, the thumbs up, whatever the hell they're all called. Don't forget.
Curtis did it for us.
All right. Show us some love. Yeah, but he can't run the TikTok one. I have to do that. Show us some love. Give us the hearts. Give us all that. Don't forget on TikTok, if every hat and mustache gifted gets a yeehaw from Lindsay. Shout outs to SP, Riley. I love the way you spell your name, by the way. Christian, Simple Father for all the gifts there. All right. So one of the things that we were talking about before we went on air, that's along these lines and something you all need to have a conversation with if you're thinking about getting married is prenups, which we've covered extensively on this show before, but I think it's a good time for us to revisit it. They are something I think you absolutely need to get. Both the man and the woman, by the way, has nothing to do with one side or the other. It's both, protects both, but they are also not the be all end all you think they are. Everybody thinks if I get a prenup, the number one reason why is, especially guys, because again, I'm going to pick on you guys, we F them up. So when you were out the week that I had David Pizarro on, who's a divorce attorney, we talked a little bit about prenups. And he and I have talked many times about them. And he said, guys screw it up all the time. You know, you go and get a prenup to protect your personal assets prior to marriage. So let's say your grandmother leaves you $100,000 in her will. Well, you get a prenup that says, that's my $100,000. You can't have any of it ever, right? Then your guy takes that $100,000 and puts it as a down payment on the marital house. Guess what? You just lost your prenup protection because now it's a marital asset. Those are the things you got to be careful of. And guys screw them up all the time. When you hear about prenups not working, the number one reason, and it's not me saying this, I've had prenup experts on my podcast, is that people violated the terms of the prenup. So they are something you absolutely should have. And if you can't have a discussion about having a prenup with the person you're going to marry, why the F are you marrying them? Well, I can't mention that. Why? If she's going to get mad at you because you want a prenup or vice versa, you have no business getting married.
There's a reason why it was called the institution of marriage, because it is in some cases a business transaction.
Not in some cases. It is a business transaction. In every case. I'm sorry.
It's like you're merging two companies.
It's exactly what it is.
And you need to protect your assets.
And your liabilities, by the way.
Liabilities. We're talking about the biggest complaint. Well, you did a wonderful video on credit cards and women. And one of the things that is fairly, in the grand scheme of things, recent is women are just now in charge of their own debt. It used to be that the husband was in charge or on the hook for the wife's debt. Do you know how many husbands ended up in debtors' prison because their wives spent too much money?
Back in the day, especially, 200 years ago. But you make a good point. Now, a beautiful example of that is college loans. Right? If you get a prenup, part of the prenup is who's responsible for paying off your student loan. Because I know of a guy who is now paying off his ex-wife's student loan that she had before they got married. It wasn't that she went to college when they were married. Now, he's trying to fight it, and I don't want to get into all the particulars because I think he's got a legit case to get out of it. But right now, he's stuck paying that bill. Because she got her college degree, racked up 6 figures in student loan debt, and decided to be a stay-at-home mom. So he was the sole source of income. So the judge is using that as the reason he's got to pay the loan. In a nutshell. Let that one sink in, kids.
See, that's another thing that Eric, Mr. Squirrel and I talked about, is he kept encouraging me to go to school, to go to college. And I was like, I don't want to take out that kind of debt because there's nothing that I would want to study that could lead to a career. First of all, I didn't want a career. Not the kind of career that they...
No, I get what you mean. Yeah.
And what else was I going to get a degree in? English?
Women's studies.
It would have been English or history.
Now, wait. You get a women's studies degree. You're qualified to work at Starbucks, McDonald's... What's that store you used to work at? I forget the name of it.
Maurice's.
Old Navy, whatever. Come on, that's a career.
No, it's not.
Sorry, I'm in a good mood today.
But I could not justify taking out student loans for an advanced degree, or even any degree, that wouldn't guarantee me a better, that didn't have to do with a career, especially when I didn't want a career. I was never going to be a career woman. I was very, very
Yeah, I would
upfront.
argue you do have a career. It's called being a mom and a wife. And that's, you know what? That's the best career anyone could have.
Although I didn't need to take out loans for that because told the story a million times and I'll tell it again. My grandmother was born in 1917. She went to Texas Women's College up in Denton. It's now called something else, I think. And she
Houston, that's just wrong. I can't repeat it.
she was a home economics major, so she taught it for 40 something years. And I inherited all of her textbooks. So I can get stains out of anything. My neighbors think it's magic. And it also was interesting, and I wish they would bring home economics back to the curriculum and make it a requirement for graduation from high school, because it wasn't just housewife stuff. It was how to manage your household finances, how to time management. There was a whole section, like 3 chapters about time management, which a lot of women nowadays don't have. I know this because I've been to your house, and it should not take 24/7 to clean it. If it takes you that long to keep your house, you're doing it wrong. Or you have, and one of the things that women do wrong is they have horrible time management. Absolutely, like no one taught them this skill. And to be fair, you can't know what you don't know. But you're not going out of your way to fix the deficit in your own learning either. You just blame it on him. Well, he should help me with the household because I can't do it all myself. You could if you had better time management skills.
Well, we got back Monday from our trip. Yesterday morning. Today's Wednesday. See, I'm all screwed up. 4 hours I cleaned the house top to bottom. Immaculate. Not that hard. Not that I have a huge house, but it's not tiny either. Although you'd probably think it was because you've been here. But
your house is adorable. Don't. Mm-mm.
But 4 hours. It's all took me. That's it. And that's everything, including all the trip laundry, everything. I even cleaned out the fridge, right? Because we left a few things in there we shouldn't have, and you know what happens when you do that, right? That was my fault. Yeah, it's not rocket science. It's not that hard to do. But again, that's where we're talking about expectations again, right? Well, he should know to do what I need done. How if you don't tell him? And even if he does know, how many times has he done it and you've gotten mad at him and told him he did it wrong? So why should he bother? Did you say please and thank you? Because that's another one. You know, I want to do a poll on that. We could actually do it right now. Like, how often does your wife say please and thank you to you? I will tell you right now. We'll see what happens. Let us know in the comments. When your wife wants something, does she say please and thank you? That's just common courtesy. Now, I do that with my wife and vice versa, right? But a lot of couples don't, because I've never, there it comes, 0. Yeah, I knew that was going to be the answer, right? If you can't say to your hubby, I'm not picking on you, Lindsay, all right, but I'm going to use your example. Honey, can you go get the ladder for me, please? I really need it right now. As opposed to, asshole, go get the ladder. Not that you did that, but that's how a lot of wives will say. And then run to TikTok and go, see, he wouldn't get the ladder for me. Well, you can't say please to me and treat me with respect. Why the F should I? Right? We got home Monday. I did all the laundry from the trip, mine and hers, Tuesday morning. And she thanked me when I got home. I was going to do that, but thank you for doing it. Little appreciation goes a long way. Little respect goes a long way.
They actually recently did a study where they studied brain scans of women and men. The same area that lights up when a man tells a woman, I love you, lights up on a man when she says, thank you.
It's as simple as that. But yet most guys never get it. Never get them. And again, that's something you want to know before you get married, right? That's not something you can put in a prenup. Well, you probably, I don't know, you could put it in there. I don't know how they didn't for it. She must say please and thank you every time she asks me to do something. That would be, if I ever get another prenup, which I won't, but I'm going to put that in there. I know you can't put in the required sex thing in to a certain point. They allow it. It depends on every state too. But I was talking with a guy. He's like, I'm going to get a prenup, and she's going to be required to have sex with me 5 times. I'm like, good luck getting that enforced. 5 times a week. God bless you if you can. You can try to put it in prenup. You probably can, but good luck getting that enforced.
But I mean, that's another thing that you need to talk about with your spouse is
spicy time.
Spicy time. Are you going to make it a priority? Are you going to make it a priority after you have kids? Or are you going to lose yourself in motherhood and forget you're a wife? Because I see that happen all the time too. Women will get married. They're wonderful wives for a little bit until they have children, and then they become mom. That's it. They stop being wives.
Well, they got paper. They don't care anymore.
I get hell all the time because they're like, well, in your marriage, you put your kids first. I go, no, in my marriage, I put my husband first. I put my husband first, me second, and my kids last. Oh, well, why would you do that? Because when my children leave, I'm stuck with me and my husband. I mean, stuck with, but my marriage is going to outlive my mothering. Once they hit a certain age, I can't really parent them anymore. I can guide them, but the parenting is done. You've laid the foundation. Now they are what they are. But guess what? You're still married. And so why wouldn't I invest in the long term? I mean, yes, invest in the short term. Don't neglect your children, but also don't make them the center of your entire universe, thinking to myself, oh, well, he'll be there when I'm done with them. No, he won't. I mean, he might, but most guys, a lot of guys.
He'll check out, right? He'll, when he gets neglected after a while, doesn't mean he won't take it when he can. Don't get me wrong. I mean, that's probably the wrong way to put it, but you get what I mean. But he will check out of the relationship. Now it's not about companionship or any of the romantic stuff. It's a business transaction, for lack of a better term. There's no emotion or feeling on it. It's just like going and having a one night stand with the person you happen to be roommates with. I mean, that's the last thing you want, because that's not a relationship.
Then I also see a lot of the times the mother will, or the wife will, she'll stop being a wife. She's solely a mother, but she still expects the husband to be both a father and a husband. And if he stops being the husband, then she has problems. From like, look, relationships about reciprocity. If all you're giving him is mom energy, he doesn't need a mom. He probably doesn't want you to be his mom because, ew.
And I'm laughing because they always say, I don't want to be his mommy. Yet that's exactly how they act.
But that's what they do. They're like, I don't want to be your mom. Well, then don't mother him. It's really simple.
Why are you doing that? Well, he makes me. No, he doesn't.
No, he doesn't. You made you.
And it's, again, that's something you want to discuss ahead of time. Now, understand, things will change, right? As you get older, things are going to slow down. That is a reality. Up here, I might want it 5 times a week. Other areas, probably not going to happen, okay?
Crank the radiator to...
when I was 19, I could do it 5 times in a night. That ain't happening now. That's just biology, right? But if you've got that basis where it matters, it's not sex, it's making love, for lack of a better term. That's how people are connected. The way you will disconnect a man from you is deny him that, because now he's got no reason to be with you. Sorry to say, I mean, I'm gonna get in so much trouble for this one, but that's the only reason men have to be with a woman now is, in theory, they get consistent access to, right? What else you offering, ladies? I don't need your money. I can cook for myself. I got my own house. I drive my own car. I don't care about all. They love to say, well, I pay my bills. Who cares?
Congratulations. Sorry. You're an adult.
Yeah. I'm sorry to put it and be so blunt, but that is the reality. And it's been that way for a long time. And women were The other side, they wanted the protection, the provision, and all that stuff. There's nothing wrong. Uh-oh. We've detected inactivity during your current live. What the frick is that? That's a new one.
Was it me
We're
doing this?
literally talking and they're saying we're inactive. Anyway, that was my 2 cents on that. Go ahead.
It was a country born wants me to snort today. Well, y'all have to say something funny.
There was something funny earlier. Hold on, I got to get back to it. I love these comments. You guys are awesome. Some of which we cannot repeat. I got to find it now. See, when I always want to find them, I can't find them. Oh, Country said, Dan will see spicy time happen before yours, Chris. That one made me chuckle. Don't be picking on poor Curtis. Yeah, we need to get.
You know what he was referring to, right?
No, I don't. Go ahead.
What the comment I made was, Lindsay had said something about the same spot that lights up in the man's brain is when you say "I love you" is when you say "thank you." I said the same spot also lights up when she says "you're right," and he was referring to "you're going to get spicy time before I hear you're right." That's what he was.
It's true.
Referring to.
That is true.
That is, yeah.
You never hear of that. That Lindsay said it to me once.
I got a question for you.
Yeah, go.
So, do you want to? Should we cover the technical stuff for prenups?
Because quickly. Go ahead.
Okay, so a prenuptial agreement, also known as an antenuptial agreement, premarital agreement, or prenup, is a contract entered into prior to a marriage setting the terms for separation. Okay, they're legally binding as long as it's followed. Okay, it covers things like asset distribution, alimony, financial responsibility. The biggest thing is the contemplation. Let's talk about the contemplation, right? Because Dan, you referred to it. The minute you take that gifted money and you make it a marital asset, you now blown it up because you violated the terms. And
not just the term of that one thing, it can throw the entire prenup out.
One provision that is violated. So it blows the whole thing up.
The whole thing.
So here's the thing that the contemplation is important on. So let's say I have my retirement accounts, she has her retirement accounts. I don't want to mix and match money. In the event of a divorce, I want to keep my house. That's why I'm going to put my name on the thing. I'm going to put my name on the loan. I pay for everything associated with the house. You stay here. We'll be okay. So if I cover all of that and that's laid out in the terms, great. The enforceability portion of it must be fair and equitable. For a contract to be enforceable, you have to have mutual assent, which is all of the provisions that everyone wants. 2, you have to have a valid offer and acceptance. You know what? This for that. That's what that means. 3, adequate consideration. So let's say I have this prenuptial agreement that I've sent over to her and she executes it right at the same time. There's grounds to get it blown up because she didn't take the time to adequately consider it. That's happened before.
Let's put that in English, Curtis. So if let's say the couple decides they're going to get a prenup.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say they hammer it all out themselves, take it to an attorney, say, make this legal.
Mm-hmm.
Attorney writes it up. Both sign it. You're saying in theory, it's not definite, but in theory, they could blow that up because either party, in that case,
you didn't
take the time to think it through.
You didn't give it fair thought.
Even though they pre-did all that.
The thing is here's the thing. If you got one attorney with competing interests,
that's
you got to have one attorney draft it, got to send it to the other side's attorney.
Yeah.
Or at least have the opportunity. So I'll give you an example. Let's say his attorney drafts it up. They give it to her. She go talk to an attorney. If after a week or 10 days, whatever, she signs it, she's like, screw it, I'm not going to do it. She had the opportunity that's considered adequate consideration.
When she had the chance to get it reviewed by an attorney, chose not to, that then puts it on her.
Correct. So the fourth, there are 5 criteria. The fourth is capacity. So are you legal age? Are you of sound mind and judgment? You know, those sorts of things. And then the 5th is legality. Does the law allow it? Now, this is where it's going to get interesting. The law, it gets interesting in child custody and child support. In all 50 states, it doesn't permit it.
Doesn't allow
it.
But
the criteria for these prenups, you have to disclose all of your assets and all of your interests. So that's the other interesting component. And then you guys were talking about one guy married his wife after she accumulated her student loan debt. Well, that happens in community property states. Community property states are states like Georgia, Arizona, Texas. So in places like Iowa, I love Iowa for this reason. My debt is my debt. Her debt is her debt. I'm not responsible for her debt. It's the one place where you can get a bankruptcy and you don't need to include your spouse.
Mm-hmm.
So things like that.
And again, that's state by state law. Again, that's why
it is state by state.
Both parties need to have an attorney, separate attorneys, because they did the route I described, where they hammered it all out themselves, took it to one attorney, and the judge threw it out because of the reasons you're talking about. It was not, both parties weren't representative. And that's on the, by the way, that's on that attorney as well, because he should have talked to that.
So, and then the one thing I'll leave you with is the business enterprise model doctrine does expressly say that you are 2 corporate entities that have merged into a partnership. And then when your divorce happens, when you distribute, it has to be in line either with your prenup, which is the considered the same as like articles of incorporation, and or if you have a breach of contract, well, guess what? You have to sue pursuant to the provisions. And if you don't have any provisions, well, the whole contract becomes null and void, which goes back to that contemplation. And spicy time is enforceable on a prenup, but hear me out on this one. This is where it gets interesting. This is going to get interesting. So you cannot force someone into spicy time, but it is grounds for the breach to cause the separation, for her to lose all of her interest in the marital estate.
And again, you got to, there's a lot of nuance to that, because I've seen very nuanced like that, because for whatever reason, guys want that in a prenup. And
you know the most common state to do it?
I don't.
It's where you're from.
North Carolina, really? Or New York? New York. I don't know on that. I will defer to you on that. But
it is the most common requested item in a prenup
in New York.
In New York.
It tells you about the women in New York. Oh, sorry. Did I say that out loud? I got the snort. I win. I got the snort. Yeah, I mean, you got to remember, you can put it in a prenup. As far as I know, legally, you can put it in every state. I'm not sure on that. Maybe you know better.
It becomes very, very odd and nuanced.
And it's not really enforceable, or not really.
I don't remember. There was a porn star actress in California back in the 90s who was being sued because she had to carry out so many videos and do the act, and she refused to do the act. Well, if I remember correctly, they were suing her for breach of contract. And what they came back with was, no, they couldn't force her, but yet they could hold her financially liable.
Yeah, they could then enforce the terms of the prenup.
Correct.
Based on That's a
wasn't
reason.
prenup. It was a contract dispute, but it was still.
But a
prenup
lot
or
of guys
contract.
think that, well, if I say in the prenup that she's going to do it with me 5 times a week, they'll make her. No, they're never, ever,
No, they will
ever,
not make her.
ever going to do
Nope,
that.
nope. You'll have to build in the remedy into. Okay, so what I mean by that is they have to build in what's going to happen if that isn't fulfilled.
If she's not willing to meet
Correct.
the terms in that, yeah,
Correct.
and that's a whole other thing, and that kind of falls under abandonment back in the day. You know, when there was fault divorce, that was considered abandonment. You know,
Correct.
And you've abandoned the marriage by not fulfilling your husbandly or wifely duties, because it can go both ways.
There is this thing. Lindsay talked about this, which was, you know, career path versus, you know, her family is more important to her. Raising her kids are more important to her. Being there for her husband is more important to her. What we do find is we find both men and women falling into what we call the King Solomon complex, which is they pursue wealth and power over those things that you and I would find fulfillment and purpose in, such as our families. What's really important, and you know, what's wealthy to you.
Well, you can't take it with you, so I would rather have the memories with my husband and my children to take with me, because that's what I can take with me. I can't take the rest of it. I can't take the house.
Like, you know, one of the things I talk with women about when they will talk to me about it is, you know, like, well, my career will give me all the blah, blah, blah. Okay. Let me explain something to you, Lucy. Okay. I had awesome careers. I was very high up in management. Do you think who the hell I am right now? Not a chance. Not a chance. The minute you leave a company, you're forgotten. There are some exceptions. I know there's always exceptions, but the reality is they don't think about you ever again. It's meaningless. If you're trying to get fulfillment and happiness from your career, yes, you can get some. I'm not saying you can't, because I did. But if that's all you're trying to base your happiness on, which is what women are being taught right now is the way to go by feminism, your whole life, your happiness will come from your career. That is doomed to fail. Same for guys, right? Guys define their happiness by their job. That you can get fulfillment and all that to a point. But if that's all you have, you're doomed. You're going to be miserable. Whereas with your family, you got a good family, a good husband, good wife, children, whatever. You can get a lot of fulfillment on that and be dead broke. Money does not buy happiness. Sorry.
No. I'm gonna drop out of here, but get some love and likes, please.
Yes, give us the love and likes. Yeah, because we got about 20 minutes left. And by the way, quick shout outs to, I can't even say it. I have a box. You know who you are. Thank you for the rose and the ice cream. Yeah, I mean, you know, to those points, because I know Lindsay, you agree with us on that, is getting fulfillment from, in your case, being a mom, raising the kids, being a wife. That is worth far more than any career you could have. And I say that from personal experience myself.
I also take pride in my home. Like, but something I lost the nut. Keep talking.
Well, I mean, just speaking, I have money. Don't get me wrong.
I remember.
I'll shut up. Go ahead.
So Mr. Squirrel recently worked 3 14-hour days. He was going to, he worked 2, and then he was going to work a third. But this was on his 12 days on, because it's his first weekend a month. So he has to go work for the Air Force in addition to his civilian job. So he works 12 days straight. Towards the end of it, he was going to do 2 14, which would all be overtime, by the way. So it would have been 2 14 or 3 14-hour days with all out overtime. And he waived the requirement to the company It says you have to have like 10 hours off between shifts. You can waive it so that he would work 14 hours, go home for 8, and come back to work. Come day 2, I could see how tired he was. Mm-hmm. And he kept saying, that's a lot of money. I was like, yes, it is. But you're exhausted. We don't need it. Either take the day off or just put in your normal 8 hours. Don't kill yourself when we're doing so much. We're already doing better than we have ever done in our life at any point ever. Don't make yourself miserable, and don't think I need you to be miserable for any reason. I would rather have you home and not, drop dead exhausted than to bring home an extra $500.
Yeah, I always equate it to, do you remember the name of your grandmother and grandfather?
Yes.
Do you remember the place they worked?
Only for one.
Some people do. Right. See? Well, your grandfather in particular probably spent 50 years of his life, because back then you basically took one job and stayed with it for life, right? You think that company remembers him? The CEOs might get remembered because they'll get buildings named after them. That's one person out of, name me the head of IBM in 1970. One of the largest companies in the world.
Can't do it.
Go ahead, right now, without Googling. Don't be going to AI, Chat GPT, look it up. Name them.
I have no idea.
Yeah. Like I remember, back in the day I worked for Pitney Bowes. I remember George Harvey was the CEO. I remember my immediate boss, Augie, who was a great guy. I couldn't name one person between the two of them. And they were working 100-hour work weeks.
Interestingly enough, I went to go into a clothing store that I used to work in today, and I experienced the, hey, you're that girl. So when I used to work there, we had a vacuum. It was a Hoover. I named it Herbert. I slapped a name tag on it. I walk in because, yes, I'm weird. I walked in today. One of the girls recognized me and they said my name. Hey, you're Lindsay, right? And then from across the store, I hear, wait, you're the one who named the vacuum.
So you are remembered a little bit.
Just a little bit for being completely nuts. But,
I managed the McDonald's in 1980s. You think one person in that store remembers me? They're not even there anymore. See, that's the thing. When you try and define your self-worth by your career and only your career, you're going to be miserable. And unfortunately, women are finding that out, right? Guys know this. I think we instinctively know that while we do define ourselves by the amount of money we make, because that's how society defines us, and we fall into that trap. But women think that's the way it should be. They're being taught to be like men. Go get that career. You're not going to be happy. I'm just saying. I walked away from a multiple 6-figure income at 48 years old to open gyms, which in the long run made me a lot of money. Don't get me wrong. But my income went from multiple 6 figures to minus the first year. I didn't just not make any money. I lost money, right? Because I had all the outlay. And it took about 3 years before we started making money. But had I stayed in the career I was in, I would have made another, by now, so 12 years later, at the salary I was making, I'd have made another $3 million. So what? Well, my bills are paid. I'm living decent life. I've got money in the bank.
Well, money doesn't buy happiness, although a lot of women think that it does. It will keep the Amazon driver coming to your house. But I lost the nut. Damn it, again.
They already teasing you about losing the nuts.
I had it was a really good nut too. It was a nice, round, shiny nut.
Steve said she dropped the nut again and Country came back with it. She picked it back up. Well, while you're thinking, let me answer a question from Houston, which is, do you allow women to video themselves working out? I no longer own my gyms. I've sold them. I do believe that they should be allowed to film themselves for training purposes. That's different than filming yourself for Instagram. So what do I mean by that? Because I train people online. Some of them live multiple states away. Okay. For me to critique their form, to make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, et cetera, et cetera, they do have to film. I'll use one particular woman that I train right now. She films herself in the gym, but the gym she works out at, the squat racks are against the wall. So when she's filming, all you see is her in the squat rack. You don't see anybody else in the gym. That's fine with me. And if I still own the gyms, that criteria would work for me. But all these women that are, and it's mostly women, there's a few guys doing it, that are strutting around thinking they own the gym and filming other people. No, I do not agree with that. I would throw somebody out for that. If I still owned the gyms, my criteria would be if you are filming for training purposes, meaning no one else can be seen, right? So if you're in a squat rack doing squats, right, you don't need a wide landscape image. You can go portrait with your phone, lock in, and all you see is you. That's it. Nobody else is going to be seen. And you can do that, say, on a bench in the middle of the floor. You know, you want to bring a tripod in and film yourself benching, I don't have a problem with it, as long as the only person that can be seen is you. And you can tell, right? But when you go and have it landscape and you're looking for that 1/1000th of 1 second and some guy glances at you out of the 40 minutes you just filmed, and you clip that one little frame and make it seem like he's been staring at you for hours, not a chance. I would ban your ass in a heartbeat. And so that's my stand on it, because there are times it is legit. I film myself from time to time when I'm training so I can critique my own form. But
Guess
nobody
what?
else can be seen.
Guess what?
You remembered the nut.
I found the nut.
Go.
Um,
So my stall worked. Good.
Women will. I find because when they want to get from filming out of the career, I was like, because I get hell for it all the time. Oh, you bend over backwards and he tells you what to do, and I was like, he's never told me what to do a day in his life. He asks, just like I ask him occasionally to go get me a ladder, but that's a different story. But why is it acceptable for career women for you to go serve a male boss who could not give two shits about your personal happiness? All he cares about is whether or not you meet your quotas. He doesn't care about your feelings. He doesn't care about, if your children are sick one day. He doesn't care about any of that. He doesn't care about your emotional well-being. None of it. Why is that acceptable? But if I choose of my own volition and my own autonomy to serve my husband, that's slavery.
Great point.
The man that will bend over backwards, who is willing to work those 14-hour days because he thinks he can then make more money to spoil me. That was his legitimate reason for doing it, because we're coming up on the first vacation we will ever take together here in a month or so. And he's like, well, that's a lot of money, and I really wanted to, spoil you while we were in Vegas. I was like, baby, I don't need it. I need you here now. I need you not to die of exhaustion. And if that means that I don't get to buy souvenirs in Vegas, well, then fine. I'm there to spend time with you, not buy stuff that I'd have to clean or wash or dust. Anyway,
it's funny you say that, because guess how many souvenirs we brought back from New Orleans?
None.
0. Because we focused on enjoying ourselves.
Well, yeah, I mean, but the argument still stands of they're willing to. I'm oppressed because I entered into this contract voluntarily, but they're not. And I was like, well, how is that any different than the contract you entered into? You entered into the employment contract willingly. You applied, did you not? Well, yeah. Well, I applied for this job too. And my job has way more
And
perks
you've gotten
than
a
yours.
performance review.
I have gotten a performance review.
All right, I got to address a couple things because they're going nuts over on YouTube. One, I didn't get any beads, but my wife did get 2. Just going to say that. All right. so they were talking about the gyms again. Sorry to go off track, but Country was asking, are gyms going away from allowing filming? So I am very deep in some gym owners groups. So this is been a rather large conversation that's been going on in the gym owner community for about 2 years. They are starting to ban them more and more, and it has nothing to do with membership. It has to do with insurance. Because what's starting to happen is lawsuits are coming, right? So you're not hearing about them because they're all getting settled, right? So if you're in a gym and some girl makes that video and attacks you to make you look like a creep, you not only can sue her, you can sue the gym for allowing it. And gyms are terrified of that. Gym owners, the insurance companies, and one of the largest expenses when you own a gym is the insurance. It is freaking ridiculous how much it is, especially if you have treadmills, because the most dangerous piece of equipment in any gym is the treadmill, not the weights, people. Okay. So that's why they're starting to ban it. It's not because of membership. Membership is down across the board. The women's only gyms are the ones failing the most, by the way. But yeah, I just wanted to address that real quick because that is something I know a lot about, and they're doing it, they're banning them, which again goes back to, if you're using it for training purposes, I don't have a problem with it. But if you'll occasionally see a guy doing it, but it's 99.99% of the time, it's the women are filming it, hoping to catch a guy so they can creep him on the internet. The gym is at a huge risk now for being held liable for allowing her to do that. So that's why you're going to see it banned. That's the real reason. So anyway, sorry.
No, there was a comment from Steve about my nut. Thank you. It's my husband's.
Family show. Scott just said treadmills are only dangerous because I keep seeing the things I see in cartoons on them. I will tell you, there wasn't a month that went by that somebody didn't fall off a treadmill and get thrown. Not a month. And people get hurt. I remember, this is going back 25 years ago. This was when I was at the Y. This guy's an elite level runner, and he just got distracted. The treadmill took him and threw, because he is very high speed, threw him into an elliptical that was behind it and snapped his leg in half. So, oh yeah, he screamed, but yeah. Anyway, so that's that. All right, let's see. Any questions real quick? Because I know.
No.
Why don't we have male only gym? Okay, you guys are going in the gym thing. Why don't we have male only gyms? Because you can't make money. People think I'll use Planet Fitness, for example, which is not a gym. Planet Fatness for a reason. That's why I call it that. Average Planet Fatness has 7,000 members, and they barely make money. The insurance alone is a month. So if you eliminate, and it's the same reason that women only gyms are not making it. If you eliminate half the potential membership, you can't make money. I know of only 2 successful, and they're fitness studios, not gyms, women only fitness studios. And when I say successful, I mean making decent money. That's why. All right. There was a bunch of other stuff. Go, Lindsay. You take whatever you want. We got about 5 minutes.
Country says I'm very oppressed and fragile and weak and timid and easily controlled.
You?
He's being very facetious.
I know he's being sarcastic. That's funny.
But
that
yes,
right there is funny.
Well, someone watched a video, one of my YouTube videos, where I speak sarcasm very fluently at a very high level. Like every third word is snark. And one of the women down in the comments was like, you poor thing, you've been brainwashed. So what about that video that you just watched makes you think that I've been brainwashed?
Well, I have a script written, not the video yet, on that too. I mean, see, you and I think alike so much. That's the problem. I got some really good videos coming out.
They're all about. I haven't done any in a while. I've been taking care of my family.
Hold on. Angel just wants to know if I ever got in trouble for something you did in your wife's dream. Yes, once. And I looked at her and said, "Are you effing kidding me?" get out of my face. That's literally what I said verbatim. And that wasn't current wife, just for the record. Have you ever done that to your hubby? I know you wouldn't.
No.
Yeah. But yeah, it does happen. I can't believe you cheated on me. What are you talking about? You cheated on me in my dream. That's my subconscious telling me that you are cheating on me. What?
I once asked Eric why he isn't bored of me yet, and he told me that I have 6 different personalities to keep him entertained.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you get bored with one, you go to the next one. So it's like having spicy time with 6 different women, right? I only got a couple more minutes. I'm just looking through the comments. Yes, love. Give us. Oh wait, hold on. Curtis jumped the gun there. All right, hold on. Show us some love. Give us the heart bombs. Come on, people. I'm watching you on TikTok. Don't forget also hat and mustache. We haven't gotten any of them today.
no,
That's
I don't think
disappointing.
smart.
I
enough
want to
is
hear
there.
Lindsay go yeehaw. I got the snort for you guys. You owe me one now.
Why don't I just do one for free?
Go ahead.
Yeehaw! Because we didn't get to do any last week.
It's nowhere near like you usually do them. You didn't do any last week either? Well, you weren't on TikTok,
We were on
right?
TikTok.
Unfortunately, I have that. We still don't have Boy Meets Squirrel on TikTok, do we?
No, we don't.
So
I still can't get a video every week or so. Yes, it was intense, Curtis. Thank you very much. I missed him.
me?
You weren't here last week.
Yeah, but you had another bald brother with you. What's Curtis? and me
Brother,
are
not
kind of
father figure. There's a difference.
Ah, okay. So I'm your daddy, is what you're saying. you know, Mr. Clippy's going to come and find this. He's going to clip that out and he's going to run with it. You know he will.
Well, see, that's tone here. There's a very difference between forgive me, Father, for I have sinned, and Daddy, punish me, I've been naughty.
Did Lindsay just call me old? No, she is like a daughter to me, and I am like a dad to her. That's
5 minutes I was in your house before your wife told you she's just like your oldest daughter.
And you are. It's about the only difference between you is you're blonde and she's a redhead. That's other than that, you look alike, you sound alike, you talk alike, you think alike. All right, we had about 2 minutes left. So, Lindsay, give them how they all can follow you. All that.
I am Squirrel Girl 1988 on all of my platforms except Facebook, which is just Squirrel Girl. I learned that the hard way. I thought I'd added the 1988, but apparently not.
You can add it afterward, can't you?
I think so, but I don't. There was a reason why I didn't.
Just tell me you got married.
I will start. The plan is to once again begin making content, but I've had some stuff going on at home, and I just haven't had time.
You're done, right? Yeah, it's I can relate, believe me. There was a lot of work to get all the videos. So all the videos you saw last week were all pre-done, in some cases 2 months ago. That's why somebody mentioned, and I went, no, I filmed that video back in February because I had a plant behind me. But yeah, it's you can follow me, Men Need to Be Heard. If you're on TikTok, this is my main. I also have a backup, which is Men Need to Be Heard 2, TOO. And on the other channels, it's Men Need to Be Heard in various forms. And, follow Boy Meets Squirrel. So make sure you hit the like, the follow, and all that good stuff, because we're here every week, Wednesday from 4 to 5:30, with our amazing producer, Curtis, who we basically forced to become our...
We voluntold him. That is a correct military term, by the way. He was voluntold.
Absolutely is. But yeah, good show. We covered a lot today. Hopefully we'll have some more guests coming on. I'm talking to some people, Lindsay, just so you know. Hopefully we can get some guests on. But yeah, we're here every week. We have a lot of fun. This was actually, I think, one of our most informative ones.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully somebody out there will take our advice, because they'll be a hell of a lot happier if they do.
They will.
So, all right, go ahead, wrap it up.
All right, that's it. That's all she wrote, guys. Bye. See y'all later.